Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and that's because I make it that way. Many of you know that, but I'm going to tell you anyway. When I get up in the morning, I decide it's going to be a groovy day, and guess what? Every day turns out to be pretty groovy. Something might happen, something might change, but I always think back and I can turn it around. Try it. It works for me, and I know it will work for you. Welcome to Life Master Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. As always, I have my co-host with me today, the infamous Jackie Bailey. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. It's been
How
a busy
are
summer so
things
far.
with the kiddos? Jackie, for those of you that don't know, Jackie coaches kids on how to speak their mind from their heart and understand what's important to them.
Yeah. We the springtime, kids get involved in the athletics, right? There's lots of track meets and gymnastics, so the kids get involved in that. And then when it nears the end of the school year, their attention turns to end of year projects and tests and things like that. So the kids programs have dwindled just for a little while, for a couple of months. We've got some programs this summer that will begin next week or the following week. But I'm doing a lot of work with adults now and coaching them. They're getting ready for their TEDx speeches, or they're working on job interviews, that kind of thing. So we're busy, we're working. Just this last week, I was in New Orleans, Louisiana, and was with a group of speakers there to retreat. And I'm just amazed by the talents of so many people who are putting their hearts out there in their messages and in their businesses, and they really truly want to make a difference. And it's amazing how when we all come together like that, it's like this energy source. It's so powerful. And I'm so grateful for those in-person meetings, because I like, the Zoom is okay, but I really love to be in person with people.
Well, you can feel the energy. I think you can feel it over Zoom too, but
Yeah.
I think somebody famously said, where two or more are gathered, I am there. And I think that's where the power comes from. It's that connection, that energy, like you talked about. And it's no surprise that you are on the cutting edge of this wave, right? As people get more and more understanding of being able to reach the world with their thoughts and ideas, that here's Jackie Bailey, a coach.
Well, the world needs people's heart-centered messages, right? There's so much
Totally.
Confusion right now, and there's really not a clear leader at the helm. I think that's what a lot of people are telling me.
Confusion, distrust.
So they've got to figure out, well, how do I become the leader of my own existence? How do I make sure that things happen for me and my family in the way that I want them to, because I can't rely on these outside sources any longer. I've got to be strong. And that's a great awakening, but it makes it necessary for people to speak their minds so that we all learn from each other, right?
Connection and communication, and storytelling, right? You got to tell your story. That's what most people do. Yeah. You can find Jackie Bailey. There's her name right there, and just Google her and you'll get a plethora of hits on Google. If you Google her name, and you'll find her and connect with her. If you're looking for a great speech coach, Jackie's the person. I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.com. You can go there. Any links that we talk about today, there's already a link up there for our guest today. You can follow him. He has a fascinating book that will intrigue you. It's a nice short read, but it'll start to get you thinking, especially thinking about some of the things we're going to talk about today. So it's pretty cool. While you're on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter. Jackie creates a newsletter once a week, and it highlights who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and a blog post about the show. Her and I have over 300, I think I'm going to have to count them, but there's over 300 YouTube videos of our shows on topics that cover a wide range of things, that great tools for you on your life mastery journey, don't you think, Jackie? I mean, they're all great interviews with stuff that will help us along, and you can take it for what it's worth. We put it out there so that people can understand and get those great thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, I think our strength is in the diversity of thought that we bring onto our stage. And, it's a huge range of ideas that are shared here, and it's really spectacular. So.
And we have a really cool topic for today, and I'll waste no more time and let Jackie take it away because it's her introduction day.
Yes, thank you. I am delighted to have Joseph McGuire here. He's been teaching the ancient Chinese skill of face reading since 1985, initially as a diagnostic tool for healthcare professionals, but now Joseph is focused on presenting it as a tool for enhancing communication in business. So having taught and honed his techniques over more than 35 years, Joseph has developed a mastery of observational skills. His work now combines face reading with FBI techniques from the worlds of body language, interrogation, and negotiation. Joseph understands mind, body, and spirit are inseparably connected. He provides clear, detailed, and accurate insights into personality, behavior style, communication patterns, stress triggers, and responses, enabling his clients to make clear decisions. Can you tell this is really going to be cool? He is highly experienced in the role of impartial and unbiased observer, enabling interviewers to focus on asking questions specifically role related. His book is called Face Facts: The Art of Reading Your Clients and Prospects for Sales Negotiation and Recruitment. We are delighted to have you here with us today, Joseph. Welcome all the way from Dublin, Ireland.
Thank you so much, Jackie and Todd. I'm absolutely honored to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
how does go ahead, Todd.
You go.
I was going to say, how does somebody get into something
That was my question too.
so, specific and specialized as this?
Yeah, there was no master plan on my part. I was reading people as a small child. I just intuitively knew stuff about people, and I thought everybody else did as well, because to me, so I'd meet people and so many things about them were just absolutely obvious. It was just like the words were written on their forehead kind of thing. And like my father would bring me to football games, soccer games as a youngster, and I could tell which players, I could see the patterns of play before they developed. I could see which players were committed and which players were holding back, and a lot of other stuff like that. And it wasn't until many years later, when I lived in London, I was studying a branch of Oriental medicine. I was introduced to the ancient Chinese skill of reading faces as a diagnostic tool. But the Chinese perspective was always that the mind and the body are one inseparable unit. So rather than thinking in terms of like the heart or the kidneys or whatever as this like compact physical piece, they understood it in relation, not just in terms of the physiology, but in terms of each organ being associated with areas of emotion, aspects of our mental processes. And they saw it as a complete interactive whole. So nothing worked in isolation. And that was just so fascinating for me. And then I worked as a therapist for like 30 years. I trained in a number of different modalities. So I was continually reading people, not just their faces, but their body language. And even when people made an appointment by phone, their voice, the tone of voice, the rhythm of the voice would tell me a lot about them. So and people are just, as you know, people are just endlessly fascinating anyway. So I worked as a therapist for like 30 years. And then at a certain point, my body said, enough, can't do this anymore, because what I found was that when two of the modalities I worked with are hands-on. So when I would touch somebody, they may have had made an appointment for a back problem or migraine or something else. But when I would touch them, I would know what was really going on. in
Hmm.
terms of their life. Not like the intimate details, but I would know the life patterns, and I would know what the real stresses were, and I was absorbing it into my body, and I didn't realize it. But also being a guy, I thought, I can handle all this, I can tough it out. Plus there was my own life stuff that I hadn't dealt with, and it just reached a point where my body said, enough, can't do this anymore. So I had to move sideways into just bringing it into the world of business. So like I said, no master plan, it just kind of evolved.
Wow.
So I just picked up on, you're more of an intuitive that has led you to this understanding, but it's not necessarily required to be an intuit to understand facial expression and what the meaning is behind somebody's communication, right? I mean, that's what you're talking about. While somebody's communicating, their expressions, their movements tell a story. Is that what I'm getting?
Oh, absolutely. But we tell a story before we even open our mouths, before we move a muscle. And the reality is we register faces in something like 1/17th of a second. And when we see a face, we tell ourselves a story about the face and the person behind it. Whether it's realistic or accurate or not, we tell ourselves a story. And like Hollywood has been using this stuff for the last century, and you can go back to the early Walt Disney animations. You look at Bambi, for example, very soft, rounded features with big eyes. And when we see a face like that, automatically it triggers a softer response within us. We know if somebody with features like that is not a threat. Where if you see the witches in Snow White, very tight, angular, pointy features, and we're not very pleasant. We're not attracted. And Hollywood has been using this. Like you see characters in movies, and they're not just their characterization, but their facial features and expressions are designed to represent a particular type of personality.
Wow, I would have never thought of that, but that's insightful.
Well, and some people would say that is some biases that we have within ourselves, right? And in today's world of everything's kind of discriminatory, if you were to say, I think that person, I don't feel comfortable around that person because of the way they look, people would take that maybe in a mean or unkind way. But in reality, I think what you're saying, Joseph, is that we have this ingrained in us because there's a reason, right? Our ancestors had to read facial expressions of people to know if we were in danger or not. And so it's not something that we've created ourselves. It's actually innate. Would that be correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I'm very concerned about is, as far as possible, certainly in my own work, eliminating bias. I'm not about judgment, and I'm not concerned with conventional notions of beauty and attractiveness. When I'm looking at a face, I'm looking for character. So even if somebody is not, we just say not conventionally attractive, or perceived as being not conventionally attractive, I'm particularly looking at their eyes, and what are their eyes telling me? Are their eyes conveying warmth? And if their eyes are conveying warmth, and they have a genuine, full, what we call Duchenne smile, where the eyes light up as well, that's the most important thing for me, rather than whether the surface looks apparently attractive or not.
I'm glad you mentioned the Duchenne smile, because I've heard that before. In fact, I use a program that's called Positive Prime. It's a neuroscientific tool that changes your mindset into a positive in like 3 minutes just by watching this session every day. And one of the key ingredients to those sessions is the Duchenne smiles that people have on their faces, because it makes us want to smile when we see a smile like that, right?
Yeah, there's so many benefits to a smile. I always recommend people, when they start a meeting, whether it's virtual or in person, enter the room with a smile. Always enter, and the full smile. And because when we enter the room, when we greet people with a smile, it's a muscle relaxant for us. It lowers our blood pressure, it releases tension, but it also triggers a mirror neuron response in them. So it tells them that we are not a threat.
Yeah.
And when they know we're not a threat, automatically it lowers their defenses to at least some degree.
You know, it's interesting you would say that, because as I mentioned, I was in New Orleans last week. I don't know if any of you two gentlemen have been to New Orleans. It's a kind of a dirty city. It's very old and decrepit, and it's not being well taken care of. And as in any big city, there are homeless people and there are individuals sitting on streets doing things that aren't necessarily nice. But what's interesting is because of the Southern charm that we often think of in that area, even the people that seemed a little threatening would smile and go, "Hi, how you doing?" And it was sort of this strange juxtaposition of like, how do I react to that person? It's like, I feel a little threatened by you because of what you're doing, and yet when you smile at me, my guard goes down just a little bit. So it was strange. I don't know if you have any feedback on that or
Yeah.
anything to say.
The key thing to watch with a smile are the eyes smiling.
Mm.
And so many people are practiced at what we call social smiling.
Yeah.
Where the eyes are not engaged. And if the eyes are not smiling, you need to be very careful. It doesn't mean they're necessarily out to harm you, but they're not there for your best interest.
And they're not sincere, perhaps. They're, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You'll see it very commonly. Like it's a useful practice to, like, if you want to learn about using body language, it's useful to watch politicians and celebrities. Watch a video of them, particularly where they're apparently being quite passionate and expressive, and watch the video with the sound on, then rewind and watch with the sound off, and ask yourself, what if what you're watching now rings true with what you just heard?
Yeah.
And you'll often find their body language is telling you, no, I'm not really passionate about this at all. It's just an act.
Yeah. Or there's something that's not quite sincere or true about this person.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I'm gonna have to try that. That is intriguing, especially when you know, communication, you watch these guys and they're speaking a story and a spin and you almost want to buy into it, but then you almost think that's just too much for me to buy into. I think what you recommend is then just play that back without the sound on and see if it resonates with you. That's interesting.
Yeah, really helps to develop our skills, and we all have them. We all innately have these abilities to read people, but we've just been conditioned out of it.
Well, Joseph, in your book, you have several different parts of the face that you've categorized into chapters. The first chapter where you start to talk about those facial features is the shape of the face.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the shape of the face might mean? Because that seems like that's beyond our control, right? The shape of our face is all genetic, right? So how do you know something about a person by the shape of their face?
Yeah, the system I work with recognizes 8 basic face shapes, and they're just giving an outline, a very basic outline of a personality. You're not looking to get into really specific details there, but they give you an outline, and that will obviously have been influenced by our parents or our ancestors. So I mean that's just fairly obvious stuff. But you will see variations, and some of us nowadays are a mixture of 2 or in some cases even 3 of the face shapes. But the basics, like if I can take you for example, Jackie, where people can obviously see you here, you would have a primarily rectangular face shape.
Okay.
And it sounds like it doesn't sound very complimentary, but when we see a more rectangular face shape, we intuitively associate it with leadership qualities.
Interesting.
Oh, I was going to say blockhead. No, I'm just kidding.
A blockhead, yes. And one of the individuals that you use to describe the rectangular shape is Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about leaders, that's definitely a great example of a leader. And you also say it's probably one of the most common face shapes.
Yeah. And the thing is, like I said, it's an outline of a personality. It's only an outline. Yeah. So we need to be able to look beyond the surface. We get an impression from it, but we need to be able to look beyond the surface, because it's easy to present an image of leadership or whatever.
So what would you say Todd's facial shape is then?
Well, he's got an element of the rectangular, but he's also got an element of where it's going up and have a more expanded forehead shape. So Todd would be an ideas man, but he's into with Todd because he also has a relatively broad, flat chin there, or straight chin. It tells me he's very much into, okay, which ideas are practical. He will have lots and lots and lots of ideas, but then he wants to implement them. Some of us have ideas and ideas and ideas, but we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
But Todd wants, if you come to Todd with an idea, he's instantly asking, okay, will this work?
Interesting. So would that be like the inverted trapezoid facial?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How would you describe yourself, Joseph? What's your facial shape?
I'm more the what's the word? I'm more like that fire shape. I think Erwin Schrödinger is the example there, but I have a slightly broader chin. So I'm also
it's like a triangle.
I'm into ideas and not being put in a box, but make it practical.
Huh. Interesting.
Don't go wishy-washy on me.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Cool. So how does that help you when you first know someone or meet someone? What are some of those characteristics? How do they help you to know that person better in that first meeting?
The whole purpose for me in doing what I do is to create connections, to build relationship. So when I meet somebody for the first time, I need to be able to read them quickly, because there's no point in me talking about what I do from my perspective if it's not meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
I have to recognize quickly,
or appealing to their interest, right? So that
absolutely,
you look at, and like, for instance, Jackie, she's got that leadership look and that face, and so maybe some intelligent conversation or some conversation about leadership or direction would open that path or open that doorway to a great connection.
Yeah. Jackie doesn't want you to waste her time. Just
right.
a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and let's just hang out and see what happens, kind of thing. No, that doesn't do it. And the same with you, Todd, actually. So you meet somebody and you want the meeting to have a purpose, and by all means, yeah, have fun with it, but let the meeting have a purpose.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, then chapter 2 then is that face then is divided into two halves.
Yeah.
And you use Barack Obama as an example of two different sides of the face. So what do you look for there?
Yeah. Okay. If we divide the face into two vertical halves, the right side of the person's own face, and obviously we're looking at mirror images here, but if the right side of the person's own face tells you about their public persona, and it also tells you about how they've been influenced genetically by their mother and their relationship with their mother. So the left side of the face is then the private persona and how they've been influenced genetically by the father and their relationship with the father, assuming they had one. So I'm looking for differences, particularly with the eyes, because the eyes will often again give you very different messages. And if you, for example, if you look at good photos of celebrities and just cover one side of the face first and ask yourself, what message is the visible eye giving me? And then switch sides and ask yourself, is the other eye giving you the same message? And very often they're giving you very different messages, because a lot of celebrities and politicians are very practiced at presenting in a positive way publicly, but often privately there's a whole other world of stuff going on.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, interesting. So how long, but you're probably really good at this. So you probably, so you can probably make those discriminations pretty quickly, or discernments, I should say, pretty quickly. So how does the average person start to learn that? Because you can't say to somebody, stand still, let me divide your face for a second, let me look and see. So how can an average person, how can an average person like me, what are some obvious things that we can see? Is it, like you mentioned, different eye shape or maybe lines or something around the mouth? What could the average person see that's different on each side of the face?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of obvious things. Number one, if one eye is more open. So if you'll often find the left, not always, but you will often find the left eye is more open, that they're more open in their private life to those close to them. They're much more cautious when they're in public. So that's an obvious one to look at.
So you said the right side is public and the left side is
right
private.
side, their right side is public, their left side is private. You'll sometimes see people where the right side of the jaw is noticeably much fuller, much wider, in which case it tells you that they place a huge emphasis on their public life, on their professional life. And they're much more focused there, but they're very determined and very driven. There are a couple of very, very obvious ones.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. You have anything to add a bit to that, Todd?
I'm just fascinated, and so as he's speaking, I'm looking at Jackie's face and trying to.
I know everybody's analyzing me now. Well, the next thing is the hairline and the forehead, and
but what I noticed in you talking about that is, so in looking at Jackie, I was thinking, okay, the right side of her face, her right side of her face, is more powerful or predominant.
Slightly,
it stands out more to me. So what am I looking
my hair is parted to fall on that side? Does that have anything?
No, I just think this part of your jaw and you know, it's more prominent, and the other side is more relaxed and maybe subtle or supple. So, and even with that smile that she's given, right, it kind of goes off to that right hand side. And there's a powerful cheek muscle there. So what are we looking at there, or not determining, or it's just something I noticed, I guess.
Well, it's great observation because it's actually very accurate. And what you're seeing there, you're seeing when you saw the mouth, the pulling very slightly to one side, it tells you that when Jackie wants to do it, she's very convincing at selling an idea. Very convincing. That's an innate natural talent.
Ding.
But also when because the right cheek is that bit fuller here, it tells you Jackie again is very comfortable, not just in a position of leadership, but around powerful people. She is not intimidated by power.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I know that to be true.
Well, I don't always feel that I'm not intimidated by powerful people. So it's interesting that maybe I am more than I think I am. So, okay.
You have an ability to convey the message that you're not intimidated. So it would be very, very, very few people would ever attempt to intimidate you.
Well, it's funny because I have been told by people, "God, you're so intimidating," and I think,
and I've heard that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, me? I'm not. How am I intimidating? But
that's their insecurity, but it's your communicating an aura of power.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah. All right, cool. So next then you go to the hairline, the forehead, and the eyebrows. So these three different features have very interesting descriptions about what you see there.
Yeah, and there's so many variations there. Obviously, I no longer have a hairline that's long since departed.
Yeah.
I just tell people I'm taller than my hair.
But that's a good answer.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of obvious things with regard to the forehead. Is it primarily vertical? And if it's primarily like if it's essentially straight up, if it's primarily vertical,
both have, right?
Yeah, it tells you these are people who like to work with structure and planning. It's very important for them. So again, if you're communicating with somebody with a forehead like that, it's important to present your information in quite an orderly, structured manner. Whereas if you look at somebody who's got the forehead, curving back quite a bit, like for example, Vladimir Putin, they absorb information very quickly. So they want you to speak quickly, present the information quickly. because if you speak very slowly, and if you, like you mentioned, the Southerners, the soft Southerner who speaks a little slowly, takes your time.
Yeah.
You do that with somebody where the forehead slopes back like that, you will lose their attention quickly, very quickly. So there's a couple of examples, and then you get into the eyebrows, and then there's so many variations there. But if the eyebrows are essentially straight across, again, these are people who like information in a very logical, linear manner. They're quite analytical by nature. Where if the eyebrow is more sort of curved, these are more person-centered, and they want you to connect with them first, then give the information.
Okay.
So in a business relationship, you would be wanting to develop that connection before really developing, hey, what can I do for you and what can you do for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then there's again, like I said, there's so many variations, but if you've got somebody with the eyebrows sitting down close over the eyes, naturally sitting down, like Mitt Romney, for example, if you have the eyebrows sitting down close over the eyes, these are people where their mind absorbs information quickly, and they will often speak before they've thought it out, but
Right.
they will also have a tendency to interrupt you.
Yeah. So there are some people then who have actually a really thick bone structure over the eyebrow too. So not only are there eyebrows there, but there's like a real heavy bone structure as well.
Yeah, the orbital ridge there. When you see that, these are people who very, very powerful practical intuition.
Mm.
You present an idea to them, and they will instinctively know that will work, that won't work. And they will be able to tell you very quickly. They won't get into the detail initially, but they will just intuitively know, yeah, this will work, that won't work. And
I found it
it's fascinating
very
when you were talking about Vladimir Putin, and I was picturing his face, and you were also talking about caricatures. What came to my mind?
Characters? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, cartoons,
Okay. All right.
But what came to my mind was, okay, he has kind of a Charlie Brown head, right?
Rounded.
Yeah, just kind of a rounded head. So then I'm wondering, okay, was Schultz in on this too? Do you think? Was he portraying with Charlie Brown's figure that persona?
I would be surprised if he wasn't. I'd be very surprised. And again, going back to the Hollywood idea, this has been used for, well, it was used in Oriental art for a long time. For example, like you see, I'm not attached to any particular tradition, but if you take the traditional image of the Buddha, where you've got the rounded
round
features,
face,
the big belly, and the long ears, like the long ears are associated with deep spiritual wisdom, spiritual intuition. But you'll notice the way the face is structured. Typically, both sides of the face, both halves of the face, are exactly the same size.
Yeah.
Three regions of the face: the forehead, the middle section of the jaw, they're all same dimension. So this was all done very deliberately. And if you go to more modern times in Hollywood, Star Trek: The Next Generation, like my son was a huge fan there, so I got to watch that. And you like the Ferengi, for example, the money creatures. They had big long ears, and also big large noses. And in Oriental thinking, the nose is referred to as the money pot, and the ears are associated with people who think long term where finance is concerned.
That's I know exactly what character you're talking.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, let's see your ear.
See my ear?
I don't see your ear. See, so she has kind of long ears, right?
Yeah, she has. Yeah, nice earlobe there. So again, when you see a nicely developed earlobe, and there's no good or bad in terms of it.
No, I get it.
Nicely developed earlobe, it tells you this is somebody who's naturally intuitive. So then it's making sure you cultivate it.
Yeah.
Now, I find it interesting because you cover a lot about the lines in our foreheads, and that there are sometimes three distinct lines, and each one of them represent something different.
Yeah.
So, and I was looking, I don't think I maybe have one line on my forehead.
Because you don't scrunch your
don't know
face that much.
Maybe not, but so tell us about those forehead
Aren't
lines.
those worry lines? Wait, before he tells us, aren't those worry lines? That's the way
Yeah,
I've always understood it.
yeah, and in many cases, like I've got quite a collection. You can see
Oh,
them there.
There we go.
I've got, so I like this. The face is also a life map. So the first 14 years of life are represented on the ears, even though the ears are not strictly speaking on the
Really?
face, most
Huh.
cases anyway. And then you've got the teenage years and the 20s. So when you see a series of particularly deep lines here, it tells you this is somebody who learned to worry and overthink at a very early age. And then you can look at the depth of the lines, whether the lines are broken or complete, which lines are deeper. And again, you can interpret.
wow. There's a lot to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And so you're teaching people in business. Are you teaching like CEOs and managers these traits, or are you also teaching their downline and their teams?
Both. I
Okay.
typically work with CEOs or C-suite people as individuals, and there I'm working with them in terms of their personality, character. I'm also working with them in terms of how they're perceived, how they communicate. I will also work with them in terms of negotiating, because I will profile them. I'll profile their counterparts in a negotiation. We'll do role play where I'm acting as their counterpart, and I will be as difficult and awkward as possible because I want to see how they respond under pressure.
Yeah.
I work with teams. Then I will sometimes work with teams and the managers to help with the communication between them. But I'll also work with teams, like I do a lot of actually in-person stuff here in Dublin with sales teams, where it's very much about it. I'll use the people in the room as the raw material, including myself, to make it very, very practical, so that you can read people again. And it's all about building bridges, creating relationship to get your message across to the person you're speaking to, the way they process information.
So that was going to be my next question. I mean, it's my understanding that this type of process, this type of understanding cannot be used for deceitful or nefarious activity, right? It just doesn't happen that way.
Ideally.
Ideally.
Um,
So are those people then who might be good at this who do that deceitfully? Is that what?
Absolutely. I've no doubt. I've absolutely no doubt, because there are people there who are designed to manipulate. And like, this is a long time ago. I remember reading many years ago, I think when I was studying this initially, there was a study done in a prison in New York State. I don't remember the full details, but they showed people who were incarcerated for mugging, robbing people on the street. They showed them a film of people walking down a busy street, and they asked them, which people would you pick as your victims?
Oh.
And they all invariably picked the same people. And it wasn't because they looked rich or poor. It was because of how they carried themselves. So people who are into manipulation and con men, con women, grifters, etc., they're exceptionally good at this stuff.
Fascinating.
It would be interesting to be in a room with you, Joseph, when you're looking at all these mugshots and say, "Tell me about this person, this mugshot."
But I don't think he would tell you that kind of information. I mean, maybe. But that was part of my question is, okay, as a life coach or as a social worker, how can understanding this and interpreting this benefit me?
It helps us to recognize who the person is we're speaking to, who the person is we're engaging with, because it's easy to be confused or even seduced by words. Some people are incredibly articulate, very descriptive, very convincing with their words, but we need to be able to see beyond the words. We need to know.
i.e. politicians, right?
Oh, absolutely. But not people. There are a lot of CEOs out there who are very polished performers and have absolutely nothing of substance to say. So we need to be alert to the person behind the words. and we need to be able to read who they are, but also then read them in real time, because a lot of things will change in a conversation. Their behavior, their perception. And particularly if they're either feeling vulnerable or if they're intent on deception. There'll be a lot of changes. Could be subtle changes in their posture. It could be changes in their tone. It could be changes in the rhythm of speech, their facial expressions, their micro expressions. And we need to be able to read those things, because if we're a coach of whatever kind, we want to be able to help people to bring out the best in them.
Yeah, and connect with them, right? And figure out what's going to perk their ears up to what you're trying to help them with. So how does the understanding come fairly quickly, or does it take quite a bit of study to get to a good point to where you can, I'm just going to say it like this, help people by understanding what they're expressing to you?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing this stuff for like 40 years at this point. So I'm well versed in it, but a lot of the basics can be learned quite quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of the basics can be learned quickly. And a lot of it we know intuitively. Like our ancestors were doing this.
They had to, right? That was survival.
Yeah, absolutely. They had to. Like before we had verbal language, our ancestors had to be able to read newcomers very, very quickly. They had to know whether people were friend or foe. And even when I was a child, like if the family doctor came for a visit, the family doctor was able to read these things because they just had those skills. Like one of the, I don't know if you've come across the behavior panel on YouTube. They're well worth watching. There's 4 guys, and they're experts in reading body language. But one of them, Scott Rouse, his father was a doctor, and he learned so much from his father because his father had the skills in reading body language and knowing what was really going on with people. So we have these skills, and it's just a case of reawakening them. I can add a lot of extra detail, but we have this ability, and a lot of it comes down to just getting out of our own way and just being present and letting the information come to us. Because so often what happens is we start looking for stuff, and we look for detail, and we miss the picture.
Or we're rationalizing and trying to project what this person is, instead of just being in the present moment, I think is what you're trying to say, and feeling it and taking it all in, and letting your intuitive self interpret what it is that you're visually seeing and feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all there. And it's why my business is called Clear Sight, because it's literally there in clear sight.
Yeah.
And your website is clearsight.com.
Clearsightcommunications.com. Yeah.
Clearsightcommunications.com. And we do have a link on today's show page at www.lifemasteryradio.com. Oh my gosh, I feel Jackie, I'm just exhausted.
Well, what I'm wondering, Joseph, is if there's a particular level of maturity or age of maturity that we get where we can start reading faces of people, or can we learn more about kids even by reading their facial structure?
Yeah, when I was a therapist, I often treated babies, and I could
Really?
tell. Yeah, absolutely. I loved, that was my favorite thing, treating babies. And I could tell the parents a lot of things that were not like in depth, but I could tell a lot about the personality it was going to form. And in some cases, it was very, very obvious. This kid is going to ask a lot of questions. And so make sure you're willing to listen and answer, because if you don't, the kid is going to get very frustrated with you. And it's amazing the number of parents who came back to me years later and said, "Oh yeah, question."
See, that alone is so valuable. It's like you need to be with those new parents when they're taking that baby home from the hospital for the first time and go, "Okay, here's what I know about your kid.
Here's your little personality. Get ready."
Here's their expose or whatever on what they're going to be like, and take it home and enjoy it. Because wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to take another look at my grandkids and say, yeah, that's pretty powerful. I also think it's powerful for parents when they're interviewing teachers and tutors and people who are going to be, and coaches who are training their kids to understand maybe who that person is too, who's going to be around my kids and who's going to be influencing them. I think that would be really important as well.
Absolutely. And some of this stuff could be very useful for kids in knowing who not to be around.
Mm.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, so maybe I'm going to have to train with you a little bit so I can incorporate this into my curriculum and
Look at
make
her
my
brains.
students
Her
safer.
brains just
Yeah,
going.
well, I want my students to be safe. That's a big deal for me. Coming from my background, I want them to be safe. And but what I really hear you saying, Joseph, is that we do need to listen to our intuition, right?
Absolutely.
When we have that term that he made a good first impression or she made a good first impression, that there's something legitimate to that, right? So we're conveying a lot when we show up in the world, but we should be listening more to ourselves when we are communicating with other people and deciding, is this person someone I really want to work with? Do I trust this person? And we need to be, because I think we're being this idea of, you got to be kind, you got to be tolerant, you got to be nice.
Understanding.
I think that's being drilled into us. Not that those are bad things, but I think it becomes dangerous when it supersedes our own intuition, right? When we think, there's something about that person that makes me feel cringy, right? But if someone say, no, you got to be nice, you got to be kind, and now we're thinking, well, I do have to go spend time with that person because that would be unkind to do that. I think that's a wrong message. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I had to grow out of that one myself. I was brought up to be very polite and mannerly, and sometimes that just doesn't serve. So if we get a vibe from somebody that we don't want to be around them, and we should be teaching this to kids. If we get that, or if our kids are telling us, I don't like that person, pay attention. Make sure our kids do not spend time with that person, even if we don't have any actual evidence that there's anything untoward. So yeah, really paying attention to our intuition with stuff like that's concerned. And then what I tend to say to people is trust your gut and then check for evidence. But if you get a vibe from somebody and say it's a circumstance where you need to actually spend time with them for whatever reason, make sure you do not open yourself emotionally. Keep it on a purely transactional level. And ask questions rather than answer them.
Parents, that's so good to know. I hope you're hearing this. so good to know.
let's drill down. Let's see if we can get a little more specific, because Jack and I both have the same pet peeve, and that's lying. So what are some of the signs that we can pick up on easily if our gut is telling us this person's possibly lying? What would we be looking for maybe in facial expression to validate that?
Okay, the bad news is that there is no single feature of aspect of body language or single facial expression that tells you somebody is lying. If you want to, I don't go looking for deception, but if you get a sense that somebody is being deceptive or obviously lying, then you need to look for what we call a cluster of behaviors. And for example, I'm going to do something very simple here. What did I just do?
You reached for a cup.
You distracted.
No. Oh.
I reached for a cup.
Reached for a cup and then showed us the cup.
I reached for a cup with my left hand.
Oh, okay.
So for example, you need to know which hand is dominant. So if somebody starts to be expressive with their non-dominant hand, pay attention. Lying. They may not be lying, but if their dominant hand is resting and their non-dominant hand is doing, is being quite active, just be on alert and then listen for what they're saying. And does that resonate? Does that resonate? Does that ring true for you? Yeah. If it doesn't ring true for you, say, I'm not sure I got that. Could you repeat that, or could you tell me more? And if you ask them to repeat it, if they repeat it in exactly the same words, that's a red flag.
Ooh.
Because it's organized.
Yeah, because it's prepared, it's organized. Yeah. If they're using language that's very much about very impersonal, it's quite possible it's not true.
Interesting.
So if it's
I've heard that.
descriptive,
Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, if it's descriptive and you feel like it's just flowing from the heart, and when they repeat it, it's the same idea, only with different words describing it, it's probably a true thing. But if it's verbatim, and would there be emotion still attached to it with it being verbatim, or would it be just kind of robotic?
The tone of voice will usually be revealing, because it will be, it won't usually be very emotive.
Like if I was trying to sell you something and I'd say, this new product is going to help you make $10,000 the first day you use it. And then you say, I don't know, that doesn't seem realistic. So how do I make that $10,000? And I would say, this product is going to help you make $10,000 the first day. If I kind of repeat the same thing, that's a red flag. Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting.
No change in wording.
Yeah.
It's interesting. At first, when Jackie said that, she used her left hand and her left finger, and then when she came back and did it again, she switched.
Yeah.
And
exactly. Yeah.
Huh. Well, I have heard in the past that you can watch eyes too, that if you ask a question and someone looks to the side of their dominant hand, they're probably being sincere in their answer. But if they look to the side of their non-dominant hand, no, that's not true anymore.
No, you need to know where the eyes go is contextual. So are they thinking about a positive experience? Are they visualizing like the last wonderful vacation they had? Are they thinking about an emotional memory? Where do their eyes go when they're thinking about a particular topic, a particular theme?
Okay.
And then if you start talking about a similar theme and their eyes go somewhere else, they're concocting, they're constructing a story.
So like if someone says, do you love me? Someone asks, do you love me? And they look toward their dominant right side and they go, of course I love you. Or if they go, of course I love you, to their non-dominant side, is that a clue?
Well, if they change it,
yeah,
you expect something like that to be very consistent. So if they go one way first and then they go the another way, it's
yeah. Interesting. Okay. Wow. There's so much to this. I don't know why you're not working with the FBI. I know that you use their techniques, but you don't actually work with law enforcement, right?
No. When I worked as a therapist, I had a good many clients who were lawyers, solicitors, detectives, police officers, prison officers, probation officers, and even some ex-prisoners. And I just found the energy around it was just too heavy.
Yeah.
And that applied on both sides of the divide, so I just thought, no, too much for me.
But you've probably trained some police forces, have you not? Or
no, I just won't go there. I won't go there. Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's not to say some business executives can't be shall we say interesting characters, but that's a slightly different scenario for me.
Yeah. No, you got to go what feels right.
It's part of you feeling in integrity, right? I mean, it's just Absolutely. Not something. Yeah. And there's that nefarious activity and that deception, and it could go in a very bad way very quickly. And
yeah, if you already know there's potential and high potential for dishonesty and manipulation, it might actually mess up your whatever your feelers. I don't know what they are. Your echolocation or whatever it is you want to call it. Yeah. Interesting.
Fascinating stuff, Joseph. I am just blown away. And in your book, you referenced that you're going to be creating another more detailed book. Is that in the works?
Not at the moment, Todd. No, not at the moment. No, I'm more concerned with working directly with people. And I will actually have a mastermind coming on stream fairly soon. I'm just deciding on a date. I just need to work out a few things, but I will have a mastermind coming on, which will include reading faces, body language, and very much in the context of communication and negotiation.
So for right now, people can work with you one-on-one.
Absolutely. Or if they have companies or groups and they want to work as in, group training, contact me. Absolutely.
That's very cool. Corporations, group training, teamwork.
Yeah.
For teams.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness, my friends, we are out of time. Joseph, thank you so much. I'm thinking that we're going to have you back on sometime in the future because there's a lot more to. I think we only covered the first couple of sections of the book, didn't we, Jack?
Yeah. We got through the eyes. We touched on the ears a little bit, but there's more we can hear about the ears. And the mouth. We really didn't talk about the mouth much. So
I'm really curious, Jackie. What are your takeaways for today?
Well, my takeaways, actually, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
How can I be more persuasive? Is there something I'm doing physically with my facial expressions or with my body that's actually undermining my ability to be more persuasive with people? So that's where my mind kind of went.
Mine went now that she knows all this stuff. And as a good friend of hers, I have to watch my P's and Q's. Just kidding. Oh, thanks again, Joseph. It was amazing. I hope you had a blast today. We created some great content for our viewers.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great information. That's about all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. My biggest hope is that you will tell somebody about the show. Just one person, just let them know. And we have many, many, many subjects and topics on YouTube. Go and check it out. There is a plethora of great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. Thanks again, Joseph. Thanks, Jackie, for showing up with that big old smile. And lastly, please, please, please make it a great day because it's all about choice. Choose to be you. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.